I'm crossing to my colleague, our senior reporter, Samkele Maseko. I do understand that he's with the president at this time. Let's cross over to see what is happening there.
Mr. President, you've been traveling a lot. You've been to G7. You are now at the Southern African Customs Union. What are the deliberations on? What are they taking out, particularly on trade relations within the African continent and South Africa in particular?
Well, we just had a very good SACU, which is the Southern African Customs Union. It's the oldest customs union in the world. It was established in 1910. And the 5 countries have continued to cooperate in this customs union. And we just had our meeting here, which was chaired by President Maseko of Botswana. And we discussed trade matters. And obviously we focus on custom issues, border issues, the exchange of revenue between our various countries. But the focus was also on how we can industrialize this region and focus on ensuring that there's sustainable economic development. And one of the key highlights was also to reflect on the conflicts that are going on in the world, particularly between Russia and Ukraine, and the negative impact they are having on food security, as well as on energy costs and rising costs all around. And we felt that we needed to focus on how we can make ourselves to be self-reliant, particularly when it comes to issues that have to do with food production. We focus on the issue of the rising costs in fertilizers, because fertilizer is a key ingredient in food production, and because we are adversely affected by the rising food prices and food security has become a key issue, we realize that fertilizers, which we are importing from Russia, and as well as the grains that we are also getting from Ukraine, we felt that that conflict should actually make us become more self-reliant as a region. Now, this issue we also raised at the G7. As South Africa, we raised the issue of getting the Northern Hemisphere economies to support the developing economies to become more self-reliant, and this notion was embraced, and we've raised it here as well, that we now need to raise a huge campaign for our economies as we industrialize to become more food secure and to focus on fertilizer production. So for me, that was a key highlight that came out of here, but also we also focus on how we can ensure that there's progressive agro-processing, focus on textiles and clothing, focus on issues such as beneficiation of our minerals. So the summit was a really good summit. It has good outcomes that are going to lead us to move much further ahead in terms of industrialization. And the other important part, of course, is the continuing cooperation amongst the various countries that are members of SACU on customs cooperation, border cooperation, transport and logistics. So it was a very successful summit, and we also applauded the agreement that has been reached at the WTO. We commended our ministers of trade, who also come from this region, who played a very important role to make sure that developing economies can now produce vaccines, and ministers from Southern Africa played a key role, ministers from South Africa, Botswana and other places. So we're very happy with the outcome of the summit.
Mr. President, back home there's a contentious issue which in 2019 you flew back from Egypt to address stage 6 load shedding. How are you addressing this issue? The Minister of Public Enterprises briefed the nation a day ago on this particular issue. What brief have you received? What's the problem this time around? What's the final solution to the problem?
Well, the issue of energy, and particularly energy generation by Eskom has been a challenging issue for all of us for a number of years, and the challenge has now been worsened by a number of factors. The strike has not made things any better, and in the course of generating electricity, Eskom lost a number of other units, and so it's been a combination of all these problems. I've been briefed, the minister has briefed me, and the Eskom executives have briefed me as well. As I go back home now, we're going to be getting a further briefing from which we will then determine what further action needs to be taken. There are various steps that have to be taken, and the increase in self-generation is going to help a great deal. We already have 6,800 megawatts that are generated from renewables. But at any given time, from solar and wind, they don't generate sufficient energy as to be able to be put into the grid. And when the units break down, it becomes a major challenge. And I regret that we've now had to reach stage 6, but I'm informed that the other units are coming back to life, and we should be at possibly stage 4 and even go down to stage 2. So as I go back now, I'm going to get a full briefing, and we will then be able to determine exactly how we take things forward.
What are some of the energy proposals besides independent power producers and renewable energy that you may be putting to the fore? I know the Minister of Energy within the country, Mr. and Minerals, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, is advocating for the debate to be brought back again on building a nuclear power station.
Well, you should know that our energy architecture is multidimensional. We have a mixed energy generation architecture, and it includes hydro, it includes wind, solar, it also includes nuclear, and also fossil fuels. And as we move more and more towards renewables, we cannot say we will exclude a whole number of other options that have been on the table and that are going to serve, say, the country well. Nuclear is an option, but it is very expensive. And I've always said that we can least afford it right now. And other countries are beginning to look at it once again, but nuclear is very expensive, and the lead time for nuclear to be brought into the grid is quite long, 10 years, even 15 years and more. So we now need to look at what we can bring into the grid right now, and renewables and doing them quicker would be the way out. Recently, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Eskom released land, and the most interesting thing is that there were so many subscribers to what Eskom made available in the form of land, and so we are going to see more solar, more wind and renewables coming to the fore, and that is what we now need to focus on as we repair the power stations. And just so that you know, the power stations that we have, many of them are more than 40 years old. And the designs for Kusile and Medupi have been faltering. So we've got a calamitous type of situation, which we need to manage. And I'm saying this is not the time to be pointing fingers, to be finding fault. This is the time for all of us to work together, including the unions, because this is a national challenge. And the negotiations that need to proceed with the unions now need to be more focused. They need to produce a deal, and there should be consensus, because the interests of the nation should be primary at this point in time. Thank you very much.
As the president, how are you feeling with all the challenges that you are currently faced with, whether politically, personal-wise? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay, and I have work to do, and I've committed that I will continue doing my work. As I am here doing my work, the work that I've been given by the people of South Africa, I was in Europe, in Germany, and I was doing that work, and I will continue doing the work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
That is the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the country, speaking on contentious issues, particularly around power utility, Eskom, and also some of the other issues facing the country, particularly speaking on how the unions need to get back together with management of the Department of Public Enterprises and also Eskom to try and find an everlasting solution to the energy crisis that the country is facing. Also speaking about his trip to the United Kingdom, particularly within Germany, to address the issues pertaining to G7, and also speaking about the war between Ukraine and Russia and solving those issues as well, because they are escalating the prices of fuel within the country and also contributing to the escalating and rising inflation rates within the world at large, and in particular the SADC region, particularly in the issues raised by President Masisi as well of Botswana, saying SACU nations must address the nation. As you can see, the delegation of South Africa, which was led by President Ramaphosa, the SARS Commissioner Edward Kitswetter is here as well, the Deputy Minister of Finance, that is Dr. David Masondo, and the Minister of Trade and Industry, Ibrahim Patel, as well, were part of the President's delegation. He is leaving Botswana now, and he is going back to South Africa to address issues facing the power utility, Eskom. As you know, that load shedding, particularly stage 6 of load shedding, has now been rolled over to continue until Friday morning as the country experiences huge energy shortages and the breakdown in power stations, in the words of the President.
All right, senior reporter Samkele Maseko in Botswana for us. Sneaking a question there about load shedding and, of course, some of the other woes that the president is dealing with at the moment. But really, the aim of the president's conversation really was more about SACU, the Southern African Customs Union, talking about the oldest customs union in the world that was established in 1910, and discussions around trade and customs matters that were discussed, exchange of revenue, also reflecting on the different conflicts around the world, particularly that between Russia and Ukraine, and how that's impacting food security in Africa and throughout our regions. And he says that some of the conversations were really about the issue of self-reliance on food in our region.